Okay, we continue where we left off last time in Siman Kufya Gimel, Sif Aleph. We were in the middle of talking about Sif Aleph here, where the Shulchan Aruch said, "Davar she'enu necha k'mo shu chai, v'gam ola al shulchan malachim, l'lafis boas apas." This question of l'lafis boas apas, b'pashtus means that it's coming to enhance the bread. It's something you put on bread or eat with bread, and would signify that anything not lafis boas apas is going to be okay. So the poskim all say though that lafas boas apas is lav dafka. To remember the concept over here is the concept is that we have something which is chashav enough that you would be invited to their house to be mazman of orchem, and you could potentially be invited over for this type of food. So we said that the general thing is that anything that's lafus boas apas, the pas is the ikar of the suda. Anything that goes with the bread is considered chashav enough to be mazman of. But the poskim all say that other things that you don't put on the bread, such as the example many of them bring is rice. The rice is a chashav food. It's given at chashav meals, and but you don't eat it on the bread. It goes along with the meal. So anything like that, which is like, as we call the meat and potatoes of the meal, that even though you don't actually eat it on bread, but that's the chashav part of the meal, then all that is considered bishul akum, because it's ola al shulchan malachim and it's your mazman alav. So lafas boas apas is lav dafka, which is just an example of the chashivas. And the next point, which is la parperis, shebishla v'kachavim. Parperis is what the poskim call kinuach, which is we'll call today either dessert or the far spice, or the sometimes it could be the fruit plate which is brought out before, but especially the dessert which is brought afterwards. So this also is considered davar chashuv, and the others call it kinuach suda, which we'll call dessert. So even though it's not from the etzem suda, it's not considered like those brachas. If you bring out a fruit plate at the end, you need to make a bracha on that fruit. So it's not considered nichlal in the pas really, but it's since it comes as a important part of the suda, it's chashuv enough to be mazman love, and also it belongs to bishul akum. So things which are baked or cooked by a goy for desserts are a problem, and especially today where just this past week I was at a very chashuv dinner of 400 people. It wasn't a dinner; it was a dessert reception. So they managed to get 400 people come out for a dessert reception. So we see how chashuv that is today, with serving plates and serving carving stations, and serving stations, and so on and so forth for desserts. Today that's very much of a davar chashuv, and therefore these things definitely belong to bishul akum, as well as the smorg, which a lot of times is even more chashuv than the meal. That also applies to bishul akum, even though it's not officially part of the actual meal. These are things that people would be mazmin on, and and Melech wouldn't have any problem inviting people over for. So these things are all belong to bishul akum. They also say that now things which are, the Shulchan Aruch specifies that we have two things. We have ola shulchan malachim, and it's enu nechal shulchai. So the halacha is if you're missing any one of those things, then such as, let's say, oil. Oil is not nechal shulchai, but it is not ola shulchan malachim by itself. It's only things that are mitzdaref with other foods. They might be chashuv. They might make the other foods more chashuv, so like sugar, for example. Let's say a type of sugar that's not nechal chai. Most of it is, but let's say beet sugar, which is not nechal chai, as opposed to cane sugar, which is people eat the sugar canes raw. But beet sugar, which is not nechal chai, and it's not ola by itself al shulchan malachim, but it is ola as being mixed in other foods, putting sugar in the tea or in the foods or the cake and so on and so forth. Since these things are only like shemen and sugar and salt and other things, spices, they're only mitzdaref to another food. They're not a food on their own right. So the poskim say that they do not have an isser bishul akum. So sugar, which was cooked by a goy, if it was from a sugar cane, not a problem at all. But even if it was made from beet sugar, then since it's not a Michael Chosha to be eaten on its own right, then it's not Bishul Akum. It's still mutter. Now the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch again is the only term that the Shulchan Aruch uses for preparation, which makes it usher, is bishul. But the poskim will say that this includes bishul includes also baking, which if it's baked bread, then it goes to this previous segment of pasakum. Then we have different gedarim to it. But you could have also baked meat or baked potatoes or so on and so forth. So things that are so baking is included in bishul, as well as tigun, frying, is also included. So anything which is prepared in a normal way with fire, that generally is considered bishul for purposes of this halacha. As we saw before, that and especially in the sugya, we saw that this one thing excludes is malicha. Even though we say maliach karaseach, that salting, the Gemara says by Yisr v'heter, by many halachas, that Shmuel says that maliach is considered like raseach. It's considered like you cooked it. That's only for transferring of isurim into from one object to another, one item to another, from isur to a heter. But the gabi these halachas, malicha is not chashav enough to be considered cooking to create this isur. It has to be doing it till what we saw in the beginning of the sugya, idea aish, through fire. There's a lot of discussion if steam is included in this or not. If you steam something, steam vegetables, the goy steams vegetables. So the post will say also that steaming is not directly cooking, and it is. Many say that it's mutter. However, they all also with indirect steam. When it's indirect steam, the steam is used to heat up a surface and then you cook on that surface. So then that's not distinguishable from something being heated up directly in the fire, and everybody answers that. But steaming is a machlokes, but there are those that are mekel. Smoked, as we spoke during the sugya, is also mutter, whether it's cold smoke or it's hot smoke, because even if it's hot smoke and the heat is participating in the beneficial, but the poskim said that we invoke the concept of zev garim, that the two things are garim. One is the heat itself, and one is the smoke. The smoke on its own right is not fire; it's not heat. It's just like another item which it's like a type of a spice which affects the meat or affects the fish. So since the zev garim and the steam, the smoking had a big effect on it, therefore that's not a problem. Bishul akum. Now, microwaves, we discussed also in the sugya, just to review, we mentioned that it's totally in common shitas whether you need actual fire or not. We don't have actual fire by microwave, but on the other hand, you do have what's a derech bishul in our times. And when we have Shabbos, we learned about Shabbos and Machlokes for Shlomo Zalman and Ramosha based on a shot in a Rashi, whether or not it would be considered a chil Shabbos to cook with a microwave. Nobody allows it, but whether it's actual chil Shabbos, whether it's a malacha bishul or not, because we need is it a shinui from Toldos Chama, or the fact that it's not considered a shinui today because it's a normal way of cooking? So then we had a machlokes poskim with Gabi Shabbos. So over here, it's interesting that it's pointed out that most hechsherim are mekel with steam, but most are machmir with microwaves. And there's a discussion among poskim I saw in a sefer discusses why it is that most kashrus agencies are machmir for microwaves. Let's say if you have a restaurant that has a microwave in it, they pop things in there. So if it's things that are being cooked to begin with, then it's a bigger problem. If it's just heating up something that's already totally cooked by a Jew, that's not an issue. We're just heating it up. But if it's being cooked from scratch, it's not that often in a restaurant, but it could conceivably happen. So they're machmer maybe because they're paskin like these the shittas that it's derech bishul b'kach. The Shevet Alevi of Wozner is machmer and holds that it's a regular derech bishul, so it for sure is included in bishul akum today. But not everybody agrees. But you do have that most kashrus agencies do not allow a microwave to be used in a like a restaurant, an establishment, unless it's a Jew that's turning it on. If you're actually cooking things in there, like let's say you're cooking eggs, you're making scrambled eggs in a microwave, which it's an actual bishul from the scratch. It's not just you're heating up an already made egg roll, but you're actually cooking an egg in there. So then an egg is enu nechal chai, and eggs are ola shulchan malachim. So therefore, if a goy, according to many poskim, if goy would heat up an egg or cook an egg in a microwave, then that would be an isur bishul hakum. So we're machmer that way. Now in the end of the Shulchan Aruch over here, he mentions that if it's he says the base Israel asar mishum bishul avukachavim. Even if it's a kli Israel, even if it was made in the kli of Israel and base Israel and the home of Israel, so then it's still asar because of bishul hakum. We're going to speak more about this in Sif Daled. We get there at the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah over there, but what the point the Shulchan Aruch is making over here is that even in a case where there's no chashash at all of anything asr murav into it, because we're talking about in the Jew's house, there's nothing asr in the house, and it's with his kalim, so there's no chashash kalim. Even so, the isra bishul hakum applies. So the point of the Shulchan Aruch is not to get involved over here in the problem of base Israel, which we'll speak to Daled, but the ikar nakuda I think of the Shulchan Aruch is coming to point out is that bishul hakum applies even when there's no chashash at all of anything asr that's murav into it. So that's an important nakuda here. But agav orchim, we do see that the Shulchan Aruch is paskening that base Israel is asr. We saw, and we'll talk about it more, the Shitas Rabbeinu Avraham, which is the Ravid, quoted by Tosfos, that held that anything that's cooked in a base Israel does not have a chashash of machal asuros and no chashash of chasnas. Therefore, he was matzir of a base Israel. So agav orchim, you see the Shulchan Aruch is paskening not that way, like Tosfos and Rav Rishonim that are cholik. But again, we'll see there might be sometimes we can mitzaref it. L'haka when we get to Sif Daled. Yeah, moving on to Sif Beis. Sif Beis Shulchan Aruch says, "Irav davar hanechal kamoshu chai im davar she'enu nechal kamoshu chai u'bishlam avukachavim." If you have mixed together something which is nechal chai with something that's not nechal chai, let's say you cook together, you made a dish with rice and cooked apples, just for example. So rice is not nechal kashu chai, apples are nechal kashu chai. So the shaila is, so the Shulchan Aruch says it depends what the ikar is. Ima ikar midavar sheyesh loshim bishul avukachavim aser in la mutar. So the Shulchan Aruch places it on in the category of within the categories of what's ikar and tafel. So the Chalachos B'Yamin speaks out that we're going to apply the halachas, the klalim that we have by Hilchos Brachos of ikar v'tafel, with some exceptions over here. The way we're going to apply it is that if the ikar, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say what the rov is, it says what the ikar is. So we're going to apply these principles by saying that, excuse me, that if the ikar is the food which is not nechal chai, even though it might be the minority, but it's clearly the ikar, then that will be a problem. So let's say you have, you would somehow, you would take a fruit. You wouldn't do this, but you would have an apple that you core out the apple, and then you have a hamburger in there. Something you have some kind of a hamburger or fruit thing, or a vegetable which is nechal chai. Let's say a pepper. More commonly, take a pepper which is nechal chai. You'd have a baked pepper with meat inside. And you have a little bit of meat, and it's mostly pepper. Still, everyone would know that the ikar is the meat. So then that would be a problem with bishul hakum. Besides the fact that it's nivla into the rest of the pepper, without going even into that, still that we'll see in Sif Gimel. But by ikar v'tafel, we would say that's the ikar. Now, however, if neither of them are the ikar, if they're both equal, so then like Hilchos Brachos, we'll go back to the klal of rov. And whichever is the majority, that will decide whether there's an isur bishul hakum on this mixture or not. And one thing that's different than Hilchos Brachos, however, is that and it's many nafkaminas in this, is that in Hilchos Brachos, we go after the majority or after the ikar, even if the tafel is nikar, even though it's clearly visible. Still, if let's say you have a fruit salad, and it's mostly adama, it's mostly strawberries and pineapple and melon, so on and so forth, but also there's also nuts in there and some oranges and apples. So if the majority is adama, it's adama. If the majority is eights, it's eights. Even though it's nick, you can clearly see the other species there. If it's majority adama, you can clearly see the pieces of apple and nuts. Even so, you go after the majority or after the ikar for Hilchos Brachos. But for these halachas, though, even though the ikar might not be bishul akum, but if the not ikar, if the tafel is nikar, then it remains also, the Pasuk going to say. So the question of ikar tafel or rov and mute over here is one of the stipulations will be is assuming, going with the assumption that the davar asar, the thing that has bishul akum, is not nikar, and only then do we apply these principles. If it is nikar, then it's us. Then the mixture is asar anyway, because it's clearly bishul akum involved as well. Now the Shulchan Aruch is talking over here about the situation in Sif Beis is that Erev Davar Nechal Kamoshuchai with something not M.U. Bishlan. We see that the Bishal happened after you mix them together. Because, and then we go after Ikar V'Tafel. If it would be the other way around, then if it would be that you first cook both of them individually and then you mix them together, so then it becomes a different story. Then we have to go after the klolin of bittul, which once we're talking about bittul over here, we'll just point out that in Kufiyat Beis, back in the Siman of Pas, there we had a major machlokas of poskim. We didn't learn that together, but there's a major machlokas of poskim in Kufiyat Beis that there the Shulchan Aruch paskins that pas akum is batal barov. Generally, we say by Yisur you need 60. Pas akum is only is enough to have rov. Let's say you have a bunch of bread that was baked by a goy, and you have a lot of bread baked by a yid, and all got sort of chopped up, whatever, and you're making croutons or something out of it, and all got mixed together. So it's enough that the majority is pas Israel, not to have an Israel pas akum. According to the Gra, another poskim, that klal of rov only applies to pas akum, not to bishul akum. Bishul akum is different. The reason they were more mikal by pas, in general, we know they were more mikal by pas to have, let's say, a din of pas palter, baked by a goy, because we said that chaya nefesh, the person's life depends on pas, so they were more mikal with pas, and hence they're more mikal by the rov, to say rov. With that reasoning, the Gra and others say that swore applies only to pas akum, not to bishul akum. Bishul akum goes back to the regular principles of shishim, a bit of a shishim like any other isser. That's the opinion of the Gra. However, the das of the shach is that bishul akum as well depends on shishim. And the reason is that even though you don't have the svora of pas of chaya nefesh, however, there's a svora of bishul akum that is not a regular isser d'Rabbanan, it's all a gzera atuchasnas. So be'etzim, really it's and it's yisod, it's really an isser on the gavra, not a pure isser on the chefza of the thing that the chazal aser. And we saw other ramifications in that, whether or not it asers the kalim. We discussed in the sugya that if it's a pure din, the gavra doesn't aser the kalim, and if they once they asered it, they made it like an isser chefza, so then it would aser the kalim. We saw machlokas, the Rashba and the Ra'ah and Bedek Avais on that prat. So over here as well, the Shach holds that the Gabi Bittul, since Be'etzim it's only a Gzeir D'Rabbanan, not a real Isser D'Rabbanan, it's a Gzeir Atul Chasnus, therefore it's enough to take away the problem of Chasnus as long as it's Batul Barov. So since the Chachmas Adam and the Aruch HaShulchan Paskin like the Shach, not like the Gra, then Paskin L'Kulos of the Chelkos Binyamin, it also make Allah Halacha to be Samach on Rov. So then the if the food was cooked beforehand, so it wasn't cooked together, then we're going to go back to the klal of rov, which as long as rov is going to be not bishul akum, then it's going to still be okay. Okay, now and one example of that a very important example of the Shulchan Aruch over here that of Ikar v'Tafel in this case is going to be that the poskim allow beer, which is cooked by goyim. Beer, even though the foundation of beer is the hops, it's a davar she'enu nechal kashuchai, and it's in beer. There's a question of whether it's ola shulchan malachim or not, but the ikara b'yisoidai, they say that it's not, that doesn't even enter the problem, because even though the foundation of the beer is the hops, but the ikar kimat kula that you have left once they sift it out is all water, and whatever tom it gives is bottled and tuffle to the water, and water is not a davar nechal chai, it's nechal chai, and there's no isur b'shalakim on water, so therefore we have no isur b'shalakim on beer, and the same svur applies as well to tea or coffee or even hot chocolate, which is prepared by goyim, that there's no isur b'shalak on that because the tea or the coffee or these things are all bottle and tuffle to the water. To the extent that you have, for example, a discussion in the poskim about Chemer Medina, if you could use tea or coffee for Havdalah. So it's not simple at all, because since even though it might be widely drank, but since it's tuffle to the water, the ikar is the water there, then many hold that it cannot be used unless, because it's not chashav enough for it to be considered Chemer Medina. There are those that are mikol, because they say that if you drink it like the queen drinks it, if you drink it like, with sugar and milk and everything, and it became like a real mashka chashuv, maybe there is room to be mikol. But Lagabi our halachas over here, anyway, we're not going into that, but our halachas over here, so it's not chashuv enough to be considered bishalakum because it's tuffle to the water, and therefore mutter. The Ramah brings down a couple of examples here. Mutter lechal afunim kliyim shal v'kavim k'nei kitnius shkarim arbishin kliyim de'enin olam al shulchan malachim. He says that roasted arbis, if you have like baked or like just heated up arbis, that it's dried and it's now crunchy, those things are mutter because they're not olam shulchan malachim. Chenagu behem heter im lo b'makom shenagu l'shoach hamachmas b'chelev she'as nogim behem iser. So then, unless they're customarily put fat on the pan that they use to dry it, then it's usher. But otherwise, it's mutter. Like he goes on to say that if you don't know for sure they did it, then we say the stam kelim shel kachavim are not b'nei yaman. So we assume that it is not a ben yomo and it didn't usher it. Now we saw before already in the book in the sugya, and we just to review that the Ramah is going like the Rambam, that the reason that the Gemara talks about klayos was the Gemara says is mutter because lo nishtana, because it didn't change from its form. It just got, sort of parched or whatever by the heat, but it wasn't actually cooked. So therefore, since we had a Tanai of nishtana, then that was one of the Tanaim in the sugya, then that's why it's mutter.
Rebbe, are you there? I can't hear you on this end.
Rav. Let's wait for the Rav to come back.